Hi, in this video we are going to introduce variables in JavaScript. So the first question is, what is a variable? Well, a variable is like a box with a name that can hold a value. So here I have a variable called numapples with the value 5 that represents that I have 5 apples. So there are a few important stages in working with variables, and the first is declaring a variable. And declaring a variable means that you're making space for it. It's like saying, I hereby make a box called numapples. And you notice, though, that declaring a variable doesn't actually put a value there. And the way you declare a variable is you write var, and then space, and then the name of the variable. So var numapples. The next part is initializing a variable. And initializing a variable creates the variable and sets its initial value. So here we write var numapples is equal to 5, and that creates a box called numapples and puts the value 5 in it. The next part is assigning to a variable, and assigning to a variable is like changing its value. So for example, in this first line we initialize numapples with the value 5, and so 5 is in the box. But then on this next line we write numapples is equal to 0, and that changes the value in the box. Notice that we don't have the keyword var in front. We're not creating another one. We're using the existing box for the variable numapples, but changing its value. And there are 3 basic types of variables that we'll be working with: the numbers, booleans, and strings. So the first is the numeric type. The first type of the numeric type is integers, and so integers are like whole numbers, and those can be used to count. So for example, var numapples is equal to 5. The next type is floats, and floats are like real numbers and can have decimal points. So for example, var cost is equal to 40.25. The next type is the Boolean type, and the Boolean type has only 2 values, true or false. So for example, var logged in equals false, or var game over equals true. And notice you have to have the exact capitalization here. The next type is the string type, and we use the string type when we want to have text. And strings go between quotes. So for example, var name is equal to Jeremy, and var question is equal to how are you. So, when we name our variables in JavaScript, there are a few rules. The name must start with a letter, or a $sign, or an underscore. The rest of the name can have letters, numbers, or underscores. And variable names are case sensitive, meaning this name with a lowercase n is different than this name with a capital N. And as a convention, we'll write our names in lower camel case. So let's see what that looks like. On the left I have some examples of bad variable names. So if I write var myvar, that's not legal because we have a space in that name. Or if I write var 8-ball location, that's not legal because it starts with a number. And if I write var n, that's not good because it's not very descriptive of what it is. So some examples of good variable names are on the right. So var numapples, and that's descriptive, and it's also lower camel case, meaning the first word starts with a lowercase letter, and then every subsequent word starts with an uppercase letter. Var students in class is also a good variable name, or var total score. So let's go into our code editor and see how we can work with variables. So let's start by writing var name is equal to Jeremy. And then if I write print line name and run this program, we'll see that it prints out Jeremy to the screen. But now if I change the name to Joe, when I say print line name, it prints the value of name, which is Joe. And so if I want to add additional text here, like my name is Joe, so I write my name is, and then I end the string and I add the plus character saying we're going to combine these two together. So if we run that, we get my name is Joe. Next, let's declare a variable called numapples equal to 5. So this initializes numapples with value 5. And if I print line numapples, we'll see that 5 gets printed to the screen. But if I want to say, number of apples, and then plus the value, and I get number of apples is 5. But let's say I eat all the apples, then I'll assign the value 0 here. So I'll say num apples is equal to 0. Note that I don't use the var keyword here. And then I can copy this line. And we'll see that now the number of apples is 0. So these are the basics of variables in JavaScript.